Welcome to the second part of the much anticipated Daniela Mars Artist Series Woodwind Collection, the Concert Flute, commonly known as just the flute. What you have here is an instrument which will allow your music to speak emotionally, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Due to the sheer amount of material and variation recorded and programmed, you'll have a tool which will give a lifelike quality very rarely achieved with virtual instruments, able to speak to those who listen to your music on a new level. How will you achieve this? Well, through many dimensions of control which we've given you, down to the shape of each note, the type of legato, and even the type of vibrato, or none at all, plus 4 mic positions which altogether make you the conductor, musician and engineer all in one. So as you just heard, you have the legato sound to die for, with the flexibility to change your note shapes and legato and vibrato styles. You can go all the way down to whisper quiet too, which is an extremely popular thing in music nowadays and seldom recorded and offered properly with virtual instruments. Why? Because it's the absolute hardest thing for a performer to do. You can control the vibrato and shape of your note too. I'm going to use the mouse so you can see what I'm selecting, but the green key switches here at the bottom can be used to toggle between different note shapes and vibrato modes too. You've got no vibrato, slow vibrato and fast vibrato, and accented versus non-accented note shapes for each mode. Polyphonic mode is included, so you can play chords if you want. Let's use this one to demo some of the mic positions. So with this library, you'll be able to use that one set of mics that everyone loves and recognizes from the best orchestral recordings. That's the Decatree of original Neumann M50 mics. And that's just one of 4 positions mixed down from a multitude of mics which we've got here for you. And we've got our first Decatree. We've got the second Decatree, so that's another Decatree just a bit further away in the room. And finally, the room position. Beautiful. So next we've got staccato. This one is my favorite, syllables. I'll play them before I say anything. So this is a ultra cinematic experimental sound where the musician blows actual syllables or speaks actual syllables into the flute for a kind of talking effect which sounds absolutely amazing. And my favorite setup for this is actually a lot of room and a lot of the close mic and nothing in the middle. Then we've got tongue rams, that's another funky one, where the musician flicks their tongue, releasing a highly pressurized cascade of air into the instrument. Easier if you just hear it, then I try and explain it to you. It's quite an interesting one. We've got recorded triple tongues if you want a more realistic feel than playing them in with the staccato patch. Flutter tongue. And finally, trills. Now, you play low velocities for semitone trills and high velocities for tone trills. So. So if you have good control over the keyboard, if you're a pianist, then you can kind of mess around with it and play different fingers at different velocities and get interesting chordal trills and stuff like that. If not, you can just program it in. So we've gone through all the articulations and you'll notice some funky controls on the interface. It's built to make your producing and composing easier and a bit more aesthetic. We've got these absolutely beautiful controls here. Just look at that. Look at that. This one here controls the key sounds. So how much can you hear the sound of the musician's fingers actually pressing the mechanics while they play? So this is nicely demonstrated with legato. So if I play legato and then turn it up, you'll hear what I mean. Obviously that's exaggerated, no one would ever smash the flute up like that while they're performing, but for the sake of demonstrating it, I rode it up a bit. And you've got air here, so this controls how much you hear the actual blowing of the musician, the air coming out of their mouth and hitting the instrument. So again, I'll turn it right up so you see what it does. And what's really interesting about this articulation is that it was intended as a sort of extension just to mess with the timbre and add a bit of that air that's going across the blowhole. However, what we realized afterwards is that when you turn it up, it sounds like the musician's blowing the instrument harder. So what I like to do is map this to the mod wheel, and then what you've got is you've got the mod wheel controlling both the dynamics and the air. And this just gives a crazy level of expression control, which I haven't really seen anywhere else. So riding that air control up and down actually gives this instrument a new level of dynamic control. And what you can do is, instead of mapping it to the mod wheel, because it's quite an extreme effect there, you can map it to something else. So I'll try with this. I'll try and do it individually. So I'll set the mod wheel to the highest dynamic and I'll try and just ride that around as I play. And finally, you've got your reverb here. And last but not least, you will be able to change the color of the whole UI. This was heavily requested, so of course we added it in. Many of you wanted to be able to change it to color code it according to the tracks in your DAW, or maybe just you have a preference. What can I say? Knock yourself out.